How you do? Well, let's bring us up here, Jack. Folks, how you doing today? And welcome to the New York Sports Heroes Show as we got one of boxing's New York sports heroes, one of the best boxers I've ever seen fight, Jack, when I was growing up. This man challenged Larry Holmes for the championship, gave him a heck of a fight, one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. And not only that, great amateur fighter, Golden Glover in New York, Golden Glove champion. And all you out there know him well. Jack knows him well, and like I said, I've seen him fight. So without further ado, let's bring in heavyweight contender and great boxer, and now a broadcaster in boxing, the great Gerry Cooney.
Let's call him heavyweight icon. He'll always be an icon his whole life. A contender, that's a former thing, but icon, he still is.
Listen, you guys are making me blush over here. What's up with that, bro?
You know, I was telling Mac before the show, your nickname was Gentleman Gerry Cooney, but I don't know why they gave you that nickname, Gerry. You went hard on sparring partners in the ring.
I did.
You didn't know how to go easy. Now, outside the ring, you have a gentle personality. You wouldn't go at it at the guy unless you really hated him. But in the ring, you didn't know how to hold back. Even if you loved the guy opposite you, you'd still go hard on him.
Well, you know what? That's a great thing that you bring up, because my trainer thought I was too much of a nice guy, and he used to make me work hard with the guys. He used to make me train hard to get me more angry and to be more explosive, and that was a thing that they did purposely for me. And I went through tons of sparring partners, knocking guys out all the time, that it cost me a fortune through the years. But and listen, I had a great career. I had a great time. I met everybody I could ever imagine I wanted to meet, and I got to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. Now, did I make some mistakes? Yeah, we're going to talk about them tonight and some other things. But listen, I lived a dream, and I saved my life, and I saved my money, and I got a great family today, and I'm excited about that.
Well, Gerry, let's go back to the beginning, right? I want to know what drew you to boxing. I mean, you could have done a lot of things at 6'6". I mean, you could have played probably a lot of different sports. What drew you to boxing?
You know, the funny thing was I grew up in a very rough alcoholic family. My father was very abusive, and my brother left the house when he was 15 and used to go to a boxing gym, and I loved that guy, and I used to follow him there 3 nights a week. And I got in the ring and boxed this kid. He slapped me all around. And I went home. I said, forget it. But I went down in the basement at 15 and a half, and I realized he was going to come at me. And then 3 days later, I went back to the gym, and I asked if I could box that kid again at 15 and a half, and he couldn't do that to me again. And then 6 months later, I won the middleweight title in the Golden Gloves, and it fed me. It helped me express my anger for what was happening at home, and they put my picture in the paper, so it made me somebody. That's how I became a prize fighter.
So your amateur record, if I'm correct, was 28 and 3?
No, that 57 and 3. 57
right,
and 3.
Exactly. And you trained out of the Washington Athletic Club in Long Island. Is that correct, Gerry?
No, it was the Huntington Recreation in Huntington. We used to train at a junior high school. They were nice enough to give us this gym. There was no ring. Stimson Junior High School. We used to go there 3 days a week and pound it out with so many different guys. And boxing is big now on the island. I mean, you got Joe Smith is fighting he won the championship. He'll be fighting. You had Chris Algieri, who just lost a terrible knockout, but was a great fighter. And you have some other great names, the Davis brothers, Howard Davis, who won the gold medal in 1976. God rest his soul, he passed on us. But boxing is big in Long Island, and I'm glad to have been a part of it. And did I make some mistakes? Yeah, I drifted away. I got a little bit scared or didn't know how to handle success. And I had nobody in my corner that I could trust. And I made some mistakes. But I'm here to talk about it and maybe help somebody in the future not take that same path.
Well, Gerry, your pro career is 28-3, 24 knockouts. You beat Jimmy Young, Ron Lyle, knocked out Ken Norton. Now, that's the fight I first saw you fight in. And in 54 seconds, this is unbelievable. I expected, Ken Norton was a great heavyweight champion at one time, fighting Muhammad Ali unbelievably, and took him three fights and it was close every time. You walked in there and you knocked him through the ropes, for God's sakes. And I said, that guy's got unbelievable power. So during that fight, what possessed you? I mean, you just went out and fired on all cylinders. You attacked Ken Norton like I've never seen anyone else. What was going through your mind before and after the fight?
Okay, well, all those points are great that you made. The problem that I had was that Don King owned every heavyweight except me, and my managers made it sound to me like they were doing the best things for my interest, but I wasn't getting the experience. Had I been with a guy like Bob Arum, Top Rank, he would have made me work. He would have put me in the ring with guys that were going to help me develop so that when the time came for me to fight Larry Holmes, I'd been more prepared. Listen, so the Kenny Norton fight, I probably could have beat anybody that night. I was in such great shape. And I knew that when the bell rang, I had to let him feel my power. I wanted him to feel my power to let him know what I got. And I hit him with the right hand, and he buckled a little bit. And I felt good. And I spun him into the corner, and he was bobbing and weaving, and I caught him with an uppercut. And 54, you could have counted him to 100. He got knocked on cold. And, realistically, I think fighters in their careers, they don't know their big punches. I mean, George Foreman said I was one of the hardest guys that ever hit him. But, when you're fighting, I never got that. I had to survive. It wasn't like it was a great sport for me. It was a survival of the fittest for me. I wanted to win. When the bell rings, I was a gladiator, and he was a gladiator. I got to get you. And that's how life was for me back then.
I got to share with you a little story. This was over 30 years ago. One of your co-managers was Mike Jones. The other was Dennis Rappaport. But I was talking with Mike Jones at Kutcher's Country Club. It was around 1989. And he told me there was a debate within your camp whether you should have fought Larry Holmes, a WBA champion, Mike Weaver. Yeah. And it was split. He wanted you, Mike Jones, to fight Larry Holmes because he felt even if you didn't win the fight, you'd win because you're taking on a great champion and it would elevate your status. And it did elevate your status, even with a loss as time went by, even though you didn't feel that way at the time. And Dennis Rappaport leaned towards the Mike Weaver fight, but ultimately it was your decision and you wanted to take on the guy you felt was the best, the ultimate, the real champion, and Larry Holmes. I mean, tell us about that, the interaction.
See, okay, so now, to my knowledge, they would never tell me about Mike Weaver. I didn't know any of those experiences. Now, Mike Weaver didn't take a good shot, so I had a good chance of knocking him out early on. But Holmes was the guy that we won. He was the best fighter in the world. He was undefeated for so long. And it was the whole scenario was great. I knocked out Norton. I'm getting a shot at the guy, and he was angry at me because I was getting the attention he never got. And it wasn't because I was white, although he wanted to say that. It was because, in my opinion, people wanted to see a breath of fresh air. I was the guy who was running every day, the sanitation company, the recreation companies. They loved me. We were connected. I was a working man's fighter, and they could get inside me. And on the weekend they come home. If I'm fighting, people are working 2 or 3 jobs a week. They get to come home and watch me fight. And if I win, they have a better week. And so that's how I looked at it. And listen, there was racism going on. It did not come from Larry Holmes, and it did not come from Gerry Cooney. It was built up by, promoters and other people to make money, and it was a terrible situation. I was in Las Vegas training for the fight. I had no time to talk about racism. I was living my dream. I was going to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, Gerry, and to touch on that real quick. I mean, Don King was a promoter that would want to grab the headlines. And I know a lot of things he did was just for headlines. And I think a lot of that came out of that camp as far as calling you the Great White Hope and, all that stuff that went on before that fight, leading up to that fight. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I mean, it's right for grabbing headlines, but I think it was wrong to pit that kind of fight when you're talking about 2 great fighters going up against each other. I mean, I know at that time there were more black fighters than white fighters. That's the way it was. But still, I think it should have been more about your record against Larry Holmes and his record, and that's where it should have went. But I think Don King, in my opinion anyway, took it down that road, Larry.
Well, and I can agree with that. And I don't know about my management if they took it down that road. I really don't know, but I know that I needed 4 or 5 or 6 more fights that I couldn't get, I couldn't receive. I was fighting once a year in my heyday, and King kept me out purposely because I wouldn't sign with him, and so if I beat Holmes, he would be out of the picture. So, I mean, this is boxing. This is how boxing ran back then. It's better today. I'm enjoying the game today because, I mean, although all the fights don't get put on right away, we're seeing some great fights. The light heavyweight division, we're waiting for Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. The lightweights are phenomenal. The light heavyweights. Hey, the heavyweight division is back. We got some great fights coming up. I would love to see Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
Let Fury and Usyk fight, and let Wilder and Joshua fight. It's a great division. And plus, the guys are moving up the ladder who can fight, are tough guys. I can't wait to see it.
But, Gerry, boxing is still the same as it was then. Certain fights aren't being made because of different promotional entities. You just mentioned Terrence Crawford's name. The reason he's not fighting Errol Spence, or won't for a while at least, is because Spence is promoted by Al Heyman in the PBC, and Crawford is kind of like a free agent now. It's just with Top Rank his whole career. If they were under the same promotional banner, the fight would definitely get made.
Yeah, but you know what? Terrence Crawford wants too much of the pie. You gotta have trust in yourself and your ability to take the smaller piece, and then you become the champ, and then you get the pie. There's a system to this. It's not like black and white. We have to sometimes suck it up to make the fight that the world wants to see. And I think that sometimes, yes, it's the promoters. You're right. But sometimes it's the fighters. They get too much of an ego and they run away with it. And listen, boxing hurts from that.
But, Gerry, you got half the pie against Holmes, even though he was champion, and that irked him a lot, at the time at least.
It did, whatever that reason, however that happened. That was, I'm sure, management had a big deal with that. Listen, that was amazing. But I wasn't involved in any of that. Wasn't involved in that. I was busy trying to get myself in shape to fight the best fighter in the world. I mean, listen, for the rest of my life, I get to talk about being in the ring with Larry Holmes, my friend today. And what a great champion. He was so patient. He waited. He set me up. He was, he dropped me in the second round. And they said, why didn't you take him out? He said, this kid has got bombs in his hands. I got plenty of time. He was patient. And what I learned in that first fight, in today's time, we got to fight a second time. And what I learned in that first fight, I know I could have taken me to beat Larry Holmes for the championship that time. It didn't happen. And then, obviously,
But, Gerry, in all fairness, you were a great competitor. And when you lost to Larry Holmes, you took it very, very hard.
I did.
And you went into a depression for a while, understandably. And it wasn't the type of thing that was conducive to an immediate rematch because your head wasn't in the right place. Because of your sensitivities, you were more hurt that you felt you let other people down more than yourself. Is that correct? Is that what bothered you the most?
I mean, that's what I was able to say. I couldn't speak for myself at the time. I was very disappointed. I wanted to fight. If they talked about a rematch, I'd have been back in that gym for a second shot at this guy. Listen, I had torn my rotator cuff, whatever it is. Listen, you know what it was? Let me tell you what it was, fellas. I fought a great heavyweight champion who was better than me that night. That's what happened. But I believe what I learned from him that night, because fighters always learn. That's why I talk about guys who are training in Bob Arum's camp. They got all top-rated guys working with each other. They're all developing at great speed because they're working hard. And that's the experience I had. I would have, if I got an opportunity to fight for a rematch, I would have been there. Now, let me tell you something. My management, Rappaport and Jones, they hated each other. I was like in the middle. This guy, that guy. I'm not supposed to be dealing with that.
Right.
I'm not supposed to have that. And then also they co-promoted that fight with Holmes. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. They co-promoted the fight. Sam Glass became a promoter. And so there was a lot of stuff going on there. Anyway, whatever it is, it happened and it's done with. And did I make mistakes? I did. But the bottom line is between both of you guys, let me tell you, I fought a great heavyweight champion who was probably in the prime of his life right there that night. And he showed me that night. He taught me how to box. He taught me about the game. And, listen,
But you
I had to
ever
wait.
play? I'm sure you play the fight again in your mind. And I know I like to joke with you. Whenever I see you, I keep saying, Gerry, every time I see the tape of the fight, you're looking better and better. And I'm not going to watch it anymore because next time you're actually going to win. That's why it's not going crazy. But you hurt him at the end of the fourth round with a body shot. Hurt him pretty badly. He doubled over a little. And he said afterwards, thank heavens the bell rang.
Right.
Do you think there were maybe missed opportunities in that fight that maybe had you turned it up a notch, maybe it could have turned out a little different, even though you did fight a heck of a fight?
Listen, I was trying to go the distance. I never did that before in my life. I should have went out and fought like I could fight, like I always fought. Get inside, work that body, turn it over more. And he was very good too, no doubt about it. But I listened to the press, in my opinion. And I believe what they said. Like, I didn't go the distance a lot. I didn't have that experience. And I tried to prove about going the distance now. Is that a bad thing to feel? No, but I'm a human being. That's what happened to me.
Yeah, Mac mentioned some of the opponents that you'd beaten, well-known, like Ken Norton, Jimmy Young, Ron Lyle. Some people might say that they were a little past their prime.
Yes.
That's another argument. But one fight you've never been given any credit for at all. S.T. Gordon. You stopped him, and he went on to become a world champion, cruiserweight, but he went on to become a world champion after you beat him.
Well, he was a very tough guy, awkward, but resistant, resilience. I had to keep on him and I made him quit. That's what happens. You watch the fight leave the guy. When you're boxing the guy and you're setting him up and you're landing them shots, you're watching his chest, but you're also watching his eyes, and you see him start to fall apart. And so, yeah, he was a tough guy. He could punch, too. He was a big puncher. And that's what happened. But so, listen. So, yes, I fought those guys a little past their prime. Jimmy Young had 9 victories before we fought that night. But I couldn't get
Jimmy
those
Young
other
was
guys.
Still good. He was still a good fighter, though.
He was a tough-ass guy.
Yes.
He was very awkward, and he was so looking for my hook that I turned it into an uppercut and cut him. But I needed more experience.
Yeah.
I needed some different looks from other fighters. I didn't get it. I sparred with Witherspoon. I sparred with a couple of guys, but never really what I needed. And I think it was, I was kept out of the picture, and my management didn't care because they wanted the big payday anyway.
Yeah.
But that wasn't best for me.
So, Gerry, speaking of unbelievable punchers, maybe one of the strongest punchers ever was George Foreman. And George Foreman went on to become of course, a heavyweight title holder as he beats, as he wins the title there at an old age of 40-something. I mean, incredible fighter. You fought him. Yeah. You did hurt him. 45 years old. You did hurt him in the first round.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about getting hit by George Foreman, because
I can't remember. Listen.
Anybody got you.
George Foreman was phenomenal. You saw him with Michael Mora. He came back after the 7th round. He was falling behind, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to get him this round." He was that determined. Now, listen, I hadn't fought in a while. I just got sober. I put down the booze, and I started to. And I was promoting some of George Foreman's fights. Yes. And he came to me and said, "Why don't we fight?" So I thought about it. And I said, "Well, I'm not really fighting, but I never did it sober before." So I took the fight. It was a good payday. And I got caught with a shot. Clancy wanted me to box for 7, 8 rounds, not to slug it out with him. And that was my mistake. I was a puncher. Yeah. And I got inside and I hurt him. I felt it. And I went after, I got caught with an uppercut.
I agree with you, Gerry. I've thought of that fight, and you were boxing the first round, moving, but you were expending too much energy, And I remember thinking, there's no way he's going to last the whole fight outboxing him, like that.
Right.
Because you were working at too quick of a pace. And you were naturally, had you stood at ring center, traded punches, it may have been to your undoing, but that was your best chance. I mean, not just boxing and winning some of the early rounds.
Well, that's right. And here's the other story is that I didn't really have a lot of experience moving around. And my idea was to take the real estate away from you. I wasn't going to be running around hiding. And Foreman liked that. That was to his benefit because he made me overwork. And so I needed to settle down in the pocket and work the jab more. But that is all lack of experience. I hadn't fought in a while. I stopped drinking. I was just new to the game. Anyway, and he was a great puncher, and he caught me and knocked me out in the second round.
Now, Gil Clancy trained you for that fight, your last fight, but you were with Victor Valley for your whole career otherwise. How hard was it to switch over to Gil Clancy for that fight? And it's your career. You needed a change of scenery. I compare what you did to a ball player who just finally needed to go to another team, even though he was maybe happy with his team throughout his career. How difficult was that?
Well, Gil Clancy and I were friends. I mean, I used to come into the city, into Penn Station. I'd go up to the Garden, and I'd hang out with Gil Clancy. We'd tell each other jokes in his office when he was running the Garden. And, things changed. I needed a change, and I moved to Gil Clancy. And he was a great guy, not that technical. I mean, he was a great guy, keep moving. He was a smart man, very smart man. And listen, I'm glad I got in there with him, and it didn't work out the way we wanted. But, it's live and learn. And Gil Clancy is a great trainer. That's why he's a Hall of Famer, right? And I love him and his family. And Victor Valley, I love that man. And I had two great trainers. And unfortunately, I started to drink and not take care of myself. And I think that was an effect on my career as well.
There's been a few fighters. Well, at least one I know of that went down that road. Tommy Morrison. I mean, Tommy Morrison was a very promising heavyweight, and he got caught up in the fast life too, Gerry. So, describe to people what it's like. I mean, when you're on that high, and you become one of the the top heavyweights in the world, you got anything at your call. Almost everybody recognizes you. That's got to be quite a high. It may be hard to control for a young guy.
You know what? It is. It's scary, quite scary, when you've grown up in a different kind of atmosphere where you are hid in the basement, and I didn't really come out, I out of sight, out of mind with my father. And it just is hard to get. I went from that to this. And listen, I loved it. I loved all the people I met my whole life. I traveled with 5 or 6 guys I grew up with in a camp. We were eating lobster soup and turtle soup and lobster tail. I mean, who's got it better than that? And I'm in beautiful resorts, and I trained the best I could with what I had, and I got as far as I did. And had I would have had somebody to grab me by the arm after I knocked out Norton and said, "Be careful," because that's when I started to drink heavily.
Gerry, it's not, you're being maybe a little hard on yourself. It's all about environment. And you grew up in a rough environment with your dad, because you've spoken openly, publicly about this, the way your dad would tear you down. Nothing seemed to be good enough.
Right.
He'd tell you wouldn't ever amount to anything. And he was a heavy drinker, per se. And so it's kind of hard to beat that. Eventually you did. You overcame it. You're a great family man. You're living a great life. And that's more than any better than any world championship you could win in the ring, how you've overcome that. But it was hard. So you keep referring to drinking during your career. When did it become the most severe problems professionally?
I found out with Larry Holmes that he had never drank, smoked, or took a drug his whole career. I started after the Norton fight. That's when I think it really hit me who I was becoming. And I started to drink scotch to excess. And I don't know whether it made me numb out the pain of who I was becoming, because it's hard to trust people. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys excuses for what happened to me. I fought a great champion. I fought some great fighters. And I went very far for who I was and where I came from. And that's it. Larry Holmes is one of the greatest heavyweight champs of all times. I got to go 13 rounds with him. And I think if I had gone to the second fight, I could have been better. Could I have
Gerry,
beaten?
but I remember during that time when you were a young fight on the way up, you were charismatic, tremendously charismatic. Everyone wanted to hang out with Gerry.
Oh, it was great.
Cooney.
It's great.
Everyone wanted to go to clubs with Gerry Cooney. Why didn't we party together? I was a little older than you. We should have gone out partying. Everyone wanted to hang out with you. It was hard. Everyone's offering to buy you a drink. They're offering you this, they're offering you that. The temptations had to be overwhelming at times.
Well, and it was, and that's what I say, that we need to have a big brother. I didn't have, my brothers were in bad place too. So I needed someone to grab me by the arm and say, pay attention now. This is important. Like I told Riddick Bowe back in the day, I said, listen, Riddick, pay attention, train your ass off every day. In 5 years, you can do whatever you want. And he didn't pay attention to it. And he had a great career, but sometimes it's just fate. Sometimes we go down that path and we think we're going to be able to make it through, just like Jerry Quarry was a very tough heavyweight. I used to talk to him about it, but you can't when you're in the throes of alcohol addiction, which was hereditary as far as I was concerned. My father's family, my mother's family, my father had it. We were prone to get it. And so, unfortunately, listen, I have a whole lifetime to regret, to say, well, listen, man, but you know what? Listen, we're together. We having a great conversation. I love this life I have. I love what I did. I love every time I get a chance to help somebody. And every time I talk to somebody and I think, wow, where did that come from? It's a gift that we're given. And I still like to be with the people. With the peoples. I still am a person, man. I love people. And every place I go, I'm with the people. I'm not hanging out at my table. I'm talking to people and catching up about their life and my life.
Yeah, Jerry, okay, I was just going to comment. Not only did you promote, some Holmes fights, you've promoted Roberto Duran, Hector Camacho, even George Foreman, as you said. So, I mean, you stayed around even after your boxing career, even to today in your broadcasting. You're still around boxing. You can tell you still love the sport, Jerry.
I love this sport, and I've been able to, stay close. I found a foundation to help fighters get out of the ring so they don't stay too long and take too many shots. That kept me in the game. It also helped me to make peace with a lot of my career. And then obviously, I did do promoting. I got involved with a company. We promoted some great fights, some great championship fights. I saw Duran Leonard 3, which wasn't a great fight, but we got Duran, 25% of Duran when he knocked out Davey Moore. And then we seen him rise back up to power. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of great things. I've done a lot of great things. I love the game. I love the people. And listen, boxing always needs help. We need to change. Let these guys get out of the ring so they can keep their marbles and enjoy their family life after the ring. It doesn't happen a lot. And I think it's getting better. And I pray that it keeps moving in that direction.
The other day, Larry Holmes was speaking about today's heavyweights, saying how much better he was than them. He's not too impressed. Do you ever think along those lines? You see today's heavyweights and you think how you might have done against them, even if you don't want to go there with that. People come up to you and they bring up that topic.
You know what? Listen, I think of Tyson Fury, who's a great fighter. He's 6'9". It's not like maybe I'm going to get to the midsection in this round. Maybe I'm going to get inside and bang that body. I got my job. I got to get inside those long arms and keep hitting him in the ribs until his hands come down. But there's something about him. He's so awkward in his feinting ability to keep you off balance. I seen Klitschko, who was, it was at the back end of his career, but he was still a great fighter. And Tyson Fury kept him off balance. Every time Klitschko wanted to get off, Fury would feint him, and Klitschko would stop. So he's got some gift out there. Listen, you got to figure Deontay Wilder has got to hit him on the chin. One of the best pound for pound heavyweight punchers in the world. He's got to hit him on the chin. Now, once you hit him on the chin, you got to finish. He couldn't do it. So, listen, those guys, they're a lot bigger than we are. I don't know, it's the milk, the cow, whatever it is. They're a lot bigger, 6'8", 6'9", and they can fight. Now, Larry Holmes, he could be with anybody in his day. In his day, when he was the great fighter, he gives anybody trouble.
Yeah,
my opinion.
Mac's favorite is Jack Dempsey. Now, you met Jack Dempsey when you were an amateur. You had your picture taken with him. It was one of the great thrills of your career. Tell us how big Jack Dempsey was, because we got into a little debate I did with another writer on this show, telling him that Jack Dempsey may have been bigger in his day than Ali was in his day. And people can't comprehend that. Tell us how big Jack Dempsey was to
let me
you.
tell you something. Jack Dempsey was very small. I mean, I have pictures of me with him in the Golden Gloves when he presented me with the Fighter of the Year award, right? Johnny Turner and myself got that award. He was very small. He was like 180 pounds.
Well, he was an older guy then. He shrunk a little bit.
He sure, I'm sure he probably did. He was an older man, but those guys were small. Listen, Rocky Marciano was a tremendous fighter, big puncher. He was a small guy, 5'9", 5'10". These guys today are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". I mean, it's phenomenal.
Well, I mean, I meant iconic. How big was Dempsey as an icon?
Well,
That's what I mean. I'm not talking about
okay,
physically.
I see what you're saying. Dempsey was boxing in those days. Just like Ali came along, there's not going to be another Muhammad Ali. There's magical guys, but not like Muhammad Ali. Jack Dempsey was boxing until Gene Tunney got him, right? Didn't Gene Tunney smack him around a little bit? And he was a big, tough guy, but finesse got to him.
You know, fighters always want to get into an international Hall of Fame. You're in several Hall of Fames, New York, New Jersey, probably another one that I can't think of off the top of my head. So there's a little talk from some circles. Well, Gerry Cooney should be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame because it's called the word fame. You were a famous fighter in your time, regardless of what they think of what you did it in the ring accomplishments. You're one of the most famous heavyweights, arguably, of all time. I mean, how do you feel about it when you hear that talk about potentially the Hall of Fame?
You know what? I have a great life. I respect the Hall of Fame. I respect going up there every year, sitting with, Gene Fullmer, Carmen Basilio, Sandy Saddler, Willie Pep, and all the stories we heard, or Bob Foster, so many great fighters through the years. It was unbelievable. But I think that I'm happy who I am. I'm happy what I've done, where I'm at, and they have a certain procedure to become in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think I really fit that place. I listen. I go up to the Hall of Fame all the time. I love it. I enjoy the time. I enjoy the weekend. But let those guys have this. I'm okay. I got a great family, a great life. I'm doing fun things, and I'm okay with who I am.
I got to tell you a funny story, Gerry. At the banquet they had on Hall of Fame weekend some years back, they were playing famous clips and knockouts. And they showed you knocking Ron Lyle through the ropes. And I looked at the dais, and all these all-time greats are looking in awe. That was like one of their more exciting clips.
Wow.
Like you're leaning forward. It really got a reaction out of them.
Well, that's very nice to hear you say that to me. And I love every minute of those guys I got to spend with them. So many great guys. And you with me. You look at boxing in the dictionary, all their faces were there. Never meet anybody like. I mean, it was so much fun. It was unbelievable. And it's changing now a little bit. It's a different kind of atmosphere up there than I grew up with. But life is changing, and those guys are great fighters too.
So, Gerry, you mentioned today's heavyweights, right? I agree with you as Fury goes. Fury can hit you going out. Fury can hit you going in. He's hard to hit. He's got a lot of power when he wants to use it, and he could take a punch. So I think Fury, if he maybe boxes a little bit more or whatever, he could go down as one of the best. What do you think about the other ones? What do you think about the other heavyweights out there right now? Joshua didn't look like he had the mental aptitude to stay in there and fight. Usyk looks we lost Jerry, so hopefully he comes back on, and we'll see what happens.
Gerry gets up before 10.
Yes.
We'll give it a slow referee's count.
Okay. All right.
But it's revealing stuff, Gerry is refreshing in that he talks about things very, very honestly, and there he is.
So sorry I lost you. Listen, we saw Tyson Fury get dropped by Stevie Cunningham.
Yeah.
Not really a puncher. So you got to figure that sometime during the rounds, Wilder's going to catch him with a shot, right?
Right.
He got better. He went away, put on 100 pounds, came back. Nobody wanted Wilder. You know what he did? He said, I want to fight Deontay Wilder. What a treat that guy is. He's half off his rocker, but a great promoter.
Yes.
And he wants to fight everybody, and he's doing it. So
who wins the Joshua Usyk rematch?
You know what? I think Usyk's got his number. In order to beat Usyk, Joshua's got to be in great shape, stamina-wise, and he's got to push Usyk back. He's got to keep taking Usyk's real estate away. He's got to get him on the ropes, bang the body. The few times he hit, Usyk in the body, Usyk was kind of looked like frail. He's got to fight. He can't box the guy. The guy's a cruiserweight champion, Muhammad Ali Cup winner. He's phenomenal. He's a superstar. You got to fight him. Sometimes, when the ninth round and Joshua comes back to the corner, you got to tell him, okay, forget the plan. Forget the plan. Just go fight. Get him on the ropes. Fight him. Nobody did that for him. And unless he gets somebody in the corner that's going to tell him that, he's just going to waste his time. This guy has got skills. Now, does Usyk beat, Wilder? Does he beat Fury? I don't think he beats Fury. I don't think he can beat Fury. Fury's a bigger version of him.
Do you see any young heavyweights, Gerry, coming up? I mean, we've been waiting for another one to get up and get involved in this, in this 3-4 way heavyweight thing. And anybody that you think could break through here soon?
Are you kidding me? There's so many great fighters coming up right now. You just can't believe it. You got guys like Shevitz. Frank Sanchez is a great fighter. You got, I don't have the names here, but you got that kid that Aram has, that young heavyweight. He's like 20.
Jared Anderson.
Jared Anderson's going to be a beast of a guy. Joe Joyce is coming in. You got that other Cuban guy who just beat. You're going to have a lot of competition, and we're going to be able to watch it firsthand. Good, talented, durable guys that stay in the pocket and fight it out with you and can take shots.
Gerry, during the time when you fought,
yeah,
the old timers would be around the gym and they would say the guys of today are bums, the guys of years ago were great fighters, okay? Now they're saying the guys today are bums and the guys around your time were the real fighters. I mean, give me a little comparison here. The guys today, how did they compare to the guys, let's say, 40 years ago?
Listen, obviously, we're going to say our era was the best. But listen, it's hard. We broke down the heavyweight division from Jack Johnson up to Rocky Marciano and from Rocky Marciano through to today. And it's hard to say what that is. Listen, the fighters in the old time were great. They were smaller. The fighters in our time, I think, were great. But every era has those guys. The heavyweight division is unfolding to be phenomenal. Yeah. A lot of great fighters that we're going to be able to.
Guys grow. I was talking with Russell Peltz, and the smaller heavyweights years ago, if they were fighting today, they would have weighed more. Jack Dempsey wouldn't have weighed 188. Marciano wouldn't have weighed 188. They would have weighed more like 212 if they were fighting today.
That's so true. And that
you would have weighed more. You would have been actually a little bigger if you were fighting today.
Well, listen, when I fought Holmes, I came in at the number for me. I wanted to come in. That was 225. I should have been 240 because it was 115 degrees that night. So I lost so much weight that weakened me. But listen, we could do this forever. The guys today, the guy like Fury, can be in any era.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, for me, I am going to break his ribs.
Yeah.
I will get to Fury and I will get to his ribs. You know, that's what I'm going to do. And it's
Yeah.
not easy because
Headshots
he's so tall.
headshots don't work on Fury. He moves around way too much. It's hard.
Well,
It's hard to
they can, but he's so he feints.
right.
It's so hard. You
Right.
can't get set up with him. Do I say the old? Maybe if you put the guys all in the same weight class, the same size, that's a crazy heavyweight division. But we can't really do that.
No,
You can't do it.
We can't. In fact, as you said, fighting light heavyweight cruiserweight right now. If it was today's fight, if he was in today's fight world, that's what he would be. So
Well, yeah, and look at the
light
Bridgerweight.
heavyweights, Gerry.
Wow, I love the fight. I'll have Bivol, Joe Smith, Beterbiev. There's a lot of good guys in that division. I've been waiting for those fights to take place, and I think they're going to finally start taking place. And listen, I think Beterbiev is such a beast. He's just so strong. He falls behind in the fight, but he lands that shot, and they can't take that shot.
Mac is a Joe Smith guy. He loves Joe Smith. You give him a
Joe
shot
Smith
against Beterbiev?
Listen, he's a Long Island guy. He's a big puncher, great shape. He gets stronger as the fight goes on. The only beef I have with Joe Smith is he has a tendency to throw too long punches. And when you throw long punches against a guy who's a veteran amateur, they learn to fight inside, shorten the punches up. They're inside. Now, I can't remember the fight's name. Anyway, you got to get inside. You got to get close to the guy. You can't punch from outside.
I just want to touch on your relationship with Larry Holmes. You two guys were honored by Ring 8 last month in New York for a 40th anniversary of your historic fight, which is actually, June's going to be the 40th, but you guys were honored a little earlier for that. What kind of relationship is it on a personal level? When did you guys become friends, and how close are the two of you actually now?
He's my friend. And, he came up to me about probably 3 or 4 months after the fight in Atlantic City, and we sat down and talked about the game and what happened and how good the fight was and what we did. And he said, there's no time to be fighting. We made a lot of money. We did a good thing for boxing. We went out and we fought our asses off. And he had the experience. And we became good friends that day. And we travel a lot together. And we have a lot of laughs. And we tell the story over and over again. And we were looking to do exhibitions as kind of like an ambassador for boxing. But he fell down and had an injury. Fell down on 3 steps of marble steps. And he had a brain bleed. And so he's better now. But we can't risk that. We can't have that. And so we're not going to get a chance to do that. But we do around all the time. We're very close. He's got a great wife, a great family, and I love being around them. And it doesn't get much better than that. The only problem is we're getting older.
Does he have a daughter who boxes? Holmes Cooney too. I mean,
listen, you guys never saw my daughter. My little girl, Sarah, can fight. She fights. She's a right-handed fighter. She throws uppercut and hooks like her old man. And she's 5'11", and she's a beast. But she's not. She's a college kid. She's got a lot of skills. She's a dancer. We're never going to see her in the ring because it's a tough business. But listen, Larry Holmes I'm so proud to be a friend of his. And to him call me a friend and tell me that he loves me. That's unbelievable. That's unheard of in boxing.
That's excellent. Tell us a little bit about your broadcasting now. You're on Sirius. Let the people know, Gerry, where they can find you on. I think you do once or twice a week. You do a show, Gerry.
I can't remember. Yeah, I'm on Sirius XM channel 156 every Monday, every Friday from 12 to 2. There's a great, combat show before us, MMA, and one after us. And we have a great show. We talk about everything boxing. We get all the stars on, and we break the game down. We break the fights down, and we tell the truth. And not everybody likes to tell the truth. I remember my first experience was when, Shawnee Porter was going to fight. Showtime Sean Porter was going to fight Errol Spence. I felt bad. I love Sean Porter. I didn't think he had a shot with Errol Spence. He did a great job with Errol Spence. He got rocked one round, got up, but he fought Errol Spence like I didn't think he could. And so sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes the fighters get hurt feelings. And unfortunately, we're in that game, and we have to pick the guy we think is going to win. And fortunately for me, I've picked 99% of the guys. If I can watch a round or two of these guys training, I know who's going to win.
Come on, Gerry. No one has a 99% accuracy of predicting fights. I mean, then I'm going to be calling you up all the time. I'm going to want to put a little money down. 99%.
Let me tell you something. I've
Gerry,
lost
come
one
on.
bet.
That's crazy, Gerry. I mean,
Listen, I picked
99%
one
winners.
mistake I made was I picked Joshua over Usyk because I figured Joshua was just too big and strong. But he just followed Usyk around. He just followed him around, just like Triple G did against Canelo Alvarez. You can't follow the guy around. You got to cut the ring off and get inside and force the issue.
Who's the best fighter pound for pound in the world, in your opinion?
In the world today? Wow. You got a lot of great guys.
Would it be Canelo? Would it be Crawford? Would it be?
Yeah, I would say you have to say Canelo, Alvarez. There's a lot of great fighters. Ortiz in the welterweight division. You got a lot of some great guys. Who's the guy who's just coming up? He's a super middleweight, Belanga. He's going to be. I never saw somebody so strong as that guy.
Well, he's still a prospect.
Still a prospect. Yeah, you're right. But he's growing leaps and bounds. And listen, Usyk is a great fighter. We got those Cuban guys that are coming up. There's a lot of great fighters in the world today. For a while, MMA took over boxing. Boxing, was putting on mismatches in the preliminaries, and MMA took over. But boxing has righted the system, and we're seeing great fights most of the time.
Gerry, when you got out of boxing, if UFC was around, could they have talked you possibly, if the money was right, into having a UFC match? Is it possible? No. You're a big, strong guy. If they taught you technique, you may have been competitive.
Listen to you. I was a wrestler in school growing up from
I didn't know
sixth grade through high school. But no, that's not my world. Those guys are great at that. No. Just like they couldn't get in the ring with me and fight me. I don't care who it was. They couldn't do it. I can't go in their world.
Now, Gerry, you've talking about a lot of great matches coming up, and that there's one thing I've had, and I've talked to all our guests, and we've had a lot of promoters and boxers on about the way boxing goes today. As Jack mentioned, different sanctioning bodies, way too many belts, not enough fights on regular TV where people can even it was just, it doesn't have to be title matches, just the contenders. When I was growing up, we knew who the contenders were. I could tell you who was the top contender in the middleweight, heavyweight. I could tell you that. Now you can't say that. If you go and ask somebody who this champion is that holds the silver belt or something ridiculous, in fact, they don't know who the regular champion is because there's so many belts. Do you think that will ever change, or do you think that's all done?
I do. I think for a period it worked fine because boxing lost its ground. And so having 5 or 6 championship belts, intercontinental, all that shit, it let the public find out who these guys were and watch them fight, and they could really tell where the game was at. And then it's got to drop off. It doesn't make sense to have 15 championships. It just doesn't. And, quite frankly, you got to really appreciate what Manny Pacquiao did, winning 9 different championships. Now, had he been years ago, it would have been probably 4 or 5. But he's been a great champion. And I think that we have to keep writing ourselves. Listen, we do see fights, and Bob Arum and Top Rank does give us fights on ESPN. PBC gives us fights on regular television. So we all see it. Not enough. We miss CBS, ABC Sports, but it's unfortunately these guys are making a lot of money. And you can get pay-per-view and bring 20 of your friends over for $5 a piece. And these guys want to get paid. Look at Mayweather made over $100 million in that fight.
Well, I'll counter you there, Gerry, where the Super Bowl is the highest rated, highest paid commercials in the world. They still could do it. It was a big fight, Gerry. They still could do it.
I think they could do it. Listen, why is it not happening? Do they not want it? Is boxing, boxing is dirty? What? Why is it happening? We don't know. But listen, we do have great fights coming up, and like a guy like Canelo, or is fighting in a 100,000 seat stadium. Those things gonna happen. Joshua's fighting over in a 100,000 seat stadium in England. We have the talent. Listen, you put Joshua Wilder over in England, you sell that place out.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're both been bruised and got stopped, and they're still great people. Who doesn't want to see that matchup? I
Oh
want
yeah,
to see
great.
it.
I agree.
Does it ever bother you a little bit that you think, wow, I would like to have picked up a belt, like fought Mike Weaver, and let's say you had a chance to fight Mike Weaver and you'd beat Mike Weaver, and you would have actually been favored in that fight. You would have had a good chance style-wise. He didn't have the greatest chin. He was there to be hit. It wouldn't be a gimme. Mike Weaver would be a serious threat, but it's a fight that I think you who fought Holmes would be favored over Mike Weaver. Does it ever bother you that fight didn't take place?
Obviously, I would have liked to have fought Mike Weaver, but I didn't think about belts. I just was in the fight of my life. Every time I got in that ring, it was a fight for my life. When you get in the ring at that kind of a level, you're like a gladiator, and you got to get to that guy before he gets to you. I really didn't care about belts, any of that stuff. Never did. Because I was doing what I wanted to do. I was trying to be the best I could, but I didn't have the right direction, in my opinion. And I didn't have the education growing up. I was abused and neglected. And anyway, I'm sick of talking about that stuff. Listen, I had a great career. I did some really wonderful things. I have a great family today. I have a lot of great fans that I see all the time. Who's got it better than me? I save my money. I help people every day.
Right. So
I've got to say, Mac, watching Gerry continuously over the years at boxing functions, no one is more accommodating than Gerry. Okay, he always has time for everybody, and he makes it a point to go out of his way to interact really well with people. Belts or not, he's a true people's champion.
Can I just tell you something for a second? So all my life, because of my background and where I came from, and I felt left alone, I've been doing charities, all kind of charities. One time I did brittle bone disease. It was this little kid, and they asked his mother, could I hold that little boy? And she said, don't hurt him. Yeah. I did thousands of great charitable events. I did an event for a guy who back from the military who lost his arms and legs, and I had a very difficult time talking to him. And I asked the announcer, he said he doesn't want to hear anything about himself. Tell him about your life. Those kinds of things are invaluable, that we as athletes and celebrities get a chance to help people, put the spotlight on them, raise money. That's the gift. I get chills talking about those kinds of things. Children's diseases. It's unbelievable what's out there. And we have, as athletes, come together and raised millions of dollars helping the less fortunate, the poor, the needy. I go to see kids at an orphanage because it's a great thing to do. And I teach them boxing, and through boxing, they don't have to fight no more. And they learn to love themselves. And they accept me in. Who's better than that?
Right. So, Gerry,
I will fight both of you guys anytime you want.
Gerry, before we let you go, because the program is coming to the end, any advice that you would have of any young kids that want to get into the boxing world? I mean, anything you can tell them.
I love you say that to me, because I want the parents to go to a gym, and I want them to pick out the guy who's teaching defense. Anybody can learn offense. Teach defense. Teach me how to protect myself from getting hit. That's the guy you want in your corner. That's the guy that cares about you, that's looking out for you. And then you can incorporate another guy in to teach you moves and how to sit to the side and get out of the way and be most powerful and most effective. But the most important thing is good defense, and you gotta get your condition. You gotta have a conditioned guy to help you work hard.
Okay, Gerry. Well, Gerry, I want to thank you personally. I never met you first time. Your incredible interview, and more about you than the fight, which I loved. I mean, I love talking and getting to the personal part of the athletes. That's what I love getting to when I interview. And it's been great having you on. I know you know Jack. I finally got to meet you. I'm glad I did. And again, thank you for coming on our New York Sports Hero Show. And truly, not just in the ring, Gerry, you are a hero to a lot of people.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. And I want to tell you, I'm going to say it again. I made a lot of mistakes, but I cleaned them up and I turned the page and I'm on to my life now. And it's the greatest thing in the world. Thank you.
Great.
Gerry, thanks for coming on the
Thank you.
show. And I hope the Knicks win for your sake tonight and your sons.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you.
We'll see you there, Gerry.
Peace,
Take
baby.
care.
Peace.
All right,
Take care.
buddy.